The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host and or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of the host and or Paranormal Buzz Radio and or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is prohibited. Paranormal Buzz Radio will not be held responsible for you holding your knees, crying, and rocking in a corner in a puddle of your own urine, or being beheaded by a group of children in the cornfield. In fact, if you come across a group of children in a cornfield, we promise to make fun of you as you run away screaming in terror. Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to RAP Paranormal and Friends with your hosts,
Kim Purvis
and Allison Robinson. Make sure to check us out on our Facebook pages, RAP Paranormal and Friends and RAP Paranormal Busters, for up-to-date show information and events. Hey everyone, welcome to another night of RAP Paranormal and Friends. I'm sorry for the delay. I was having a little bit of technical difficulties, but as you all know, it wouldn't be our show if we didn't have those difficulties. So thank you everybody for being patient. We do bring an awesome guest to you tonight. She is a soul whisperer, embodiment teacher, forest medicine facilitator, author, podcast host, inspirational speaker, and opioid crisis awareness advocate. So please welcome to our show, Ginny Jablonski. Welcome.
Thank you, Allison. I'm so excited to be with you tonight.
Yes, I am super excited to hear about your stories and how you came up with your book as well. So if you could kind of start from the beginning and kind of talk to us about, you had a near-death experience. So if you can kind of tell us what led up to that and how you came to be where you're at today.
Sure. Well, my last near-death experience is really the one that launched it all and helped me to go on a journey to endeavor to understand the other experiences I had earlier in my life. So I'll start with that one. I was involved in international security as a career, and it was just very stressful, as you can imagine. You know, high threat, high risk environment, no days off for 3-4 months at a time, extensive travel in multiple climates, and coming home with pneumonia, going into the hospital for 3 days, going back to work 2 days later.
Oh my goodness.
You know, it was really, I was living a life that I shouldn't have lived. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And of course, my body got tired and tried to say no, and my nervous system was saying, hell no, you know?
Yeah.
And, but I didn't know. I, was kind of silly back then. And so I got really sick and experienced a lot of pain and chronic fatigue and that type of thing, and went to the doctors and tried to get them to fix me, and they just wanted to give me pharmaceuticals. And I didn't want that. I wanted a solution, and I wanted to go back to work. Well, 7 or 8 years later, I realized I was never going to go back to work, and I may as well take the medicine. By that time, the pain had gotten so bad, I would crawl to the bathroom, or my husband would carry me and put me in and out of the bath. It was really bad, really bad.
Yeah.
And I really held out. I was a trooper. I really didn't want to do the medication route. But finally, the doctor handed me a fentanyl lollipop and said, this is it. This is your only hope. And I'm done trying to figure out what's wrong with you. So 4 years later, just like it says on the insert of the medication, my brain forgot to tell my lungs to breathe. And I had a near-death experience. I'm trying to keep this short because I know your podcast is only an hour and I have to teach a class in 40 minutes anyway. So
okay, that's fine.
So there I was, propelled into this white space, and a man that looked a lot to me like Jesus from, nursery school,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Or
right.
what's it called when you go to Sunday school? Pardon me.
School. Yep.
Sunday
Uh-huh.
school.
Yep.
And he said, "You've suffered enough. Come with me."
Mhm.
And I heard a commotion behind me, and there were horses and donkeys there. I had been a horse person.
Uh-huh.
And they were just sort of screaming and braying and whinnying. And I could hear in a human voice, "Don't go, don't go.
Uh-huh.
Don't you remember there's something important you have to do?"
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what that was, but I just
Right.
turned around and said, "Sorry, Jesus, I'm going with them." So, and then I was immediately back in my body, which I regretted instantaneously. My lungs were on fire. My heart hurt. Felt like a 300-pound man was sitting on my chest.
Oh, wow.
I was screaming over and over again at the top of my lungs. It was about 1:30 in the morning. Frightened my husband. I must have screamed 20 or 30 times. "I just died. I just died. I just died. I just died." Just screaming. "I just died. I just died."
Oh, wow.
Over and over again, and just screaming. And he said, "Well, are you okay now?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think so."
I'm here
And he
talking
said, "Well,
to you.
can we talk about this in the morning after I've had my coffee?"
Oh my gosh.
And look, I love my sleep, but my husband is legendary for loving his sleep. So I knew better than to question that if it's not an emergency, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So in the morning, we talked about it, and I just said, "I don't know why. And I know it sounds completely absurd,
Mm-hmm.
but there's something I have to do, and I don't know what it is. And if I don't get off of this medication,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to live."
Right.
So I went on that journey, and that's an entirely other story. I mean, that's a huge, I advocate for the overprescription of opioids. And by overprescription, I mean for those of us who are suffering pain
Mm-hmm.
simply because we haven't resolved our trauma in our life or our
Right.
unresolved emotions,
Right.
that's really unnecessary pain medication, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, and that's another story. So right after my near-death experience, right away, I realized I could see dead people. I could talk to dead people. Plants were talking. Animals were talking.
Mm-hmm.
I knew stuff I had no business knowing.
Uh-huh.
There wasn't any separation between me and everything. I mean, I did see it as a separate, but
Yeah.
the information and the knowing and the
Mm-hmm.
sort of inappropriate communication.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had no idea how to manage my psychic senses. I never had them,
Mm-hmm.
to my knowledge.
Right.
So that's what launched me on a journey. And that's what helped me to uncover the fact that I had actually had a near-death experience when I was younger.
Oh, wow.
Pardon me.
You're fine.
And then I had two extraordinary experiences. One where I fell off the back of a motorcycle going 90, 95 miles an hour on the freeway. And I was turned around and caught in the turbulence, and I was looking straight at the windshield of the sedan where I surely was going to die in a moment because I was falling off the back of a motorcycle. And I just thought, yep, that's it. I'm a goner. There's no way I'm going to survive this.
Uh-huh.
And I can only describe, and what I have described many times, as the invisible hand of God. What other name is there for it?
Mm-hmm.
A force of maybe the wind?
Yeah, yeah.
95 miles an hour, a force that I cannot describe, perfectly propelled me back onto the seat of the motorcycle and wrapped my arms around the driver.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's insane.
So there's a reason I'm supposed to be alive.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I would say so.
And then a few years after that, I was driving my car in the fast lane on the 10 freeway in LA. I don't know where you guys are from, but
we're from Iowa.
Oh, okay. I love that. So it's a pretty big freeway in LA, and I'm in the fast lane, and my husband calls, and my whole life I had been what people call hypersensitive or highly sensitive or hypersympathetic, right?
Yeah.
Feeling people's pain. And my husband called and said he needed a surgery, and he explained why. And I was like, and I just started passing out. and my vision was going, and I looked over to the right, and there was a semi truck and another semi truck and another semi truck on this 4-lane highway. And in front of the other semi truck, as I was going like 80, 85 miles an hour, was the off ramp. And like, even if I put my foot on the gas right now, I could not make it to that off ramp. And then I pass out. I could feel myself drop the phone and slump. And I had this sense of tumbling. And I woke up about 15 minutes later in the parking lot off that off ramp of a McDonald's.
Oh, wow.
And so I looked around and I saw the phone on the floor, and I picked up the phone and I called my husband. And because the phones back then did track the time, it was about 15, 20 minutes. And my husband said, "What happened? I was really worried about you." And I said, "I don't know. I'm sitting on the side of the freeway and I don't remember getting here."
Oh my God.
So he drove 100 miles from where he was and picked me up and drove me about another 100 miles to the doctor, back to the, city where he was, because I was outside the city. And the doctor just said, "Oh, you're getting older. You have vasovaga. You're just sensitive. You're fine now. There's nothing wrong with you." So then he drove me 100 miles back to my car.
Oh my gosh.
So we talked about this. I keep having these experiences. I fell off a motorcycle. I had this sense of crashing my car, and then I'm in a parking lot. What's going on? And we just thought, oh, well, we had some pretty sweet little girls that we were raising at the time, and it must just be that I need to be their mother. I just need to stay around to be their mother. And it wasn't until this last near-death experience where I woke up with all this psychic ability and the ability to literally directly communicate with what most people call our higher self, the part of us that is not inside of time. It is outside of the veil, and it knows everything about you. And it was like we never hung up the line.
Wow.
So that is what really propelled me on a journey to understand what was happening. And I would seek answers and study modalities and philosophies and, charts and graphs and this and that. And nothing really ever explained everything I was experiencing. So I kept going to the next class, the next workshop, the next healing modality, the next certification, the next healer, the next healer, the next healer.
Right.
Or spiritual counselor or intuitive or medium, records reader. And it wasn't until I went to Australia that I really found somebody, an Aboriginal woman, who really helped me to understand that all of the information I was getting, I was actually supposed to do something with. It wasn't just entertainment. And people weren't there to heal me magically, contrary to popular belief that we could just give somebody $500 and we're magically healed.
Right.
So that was the pivot point for me in 2014 when I worked with the Aboriginal woman. I went to Australia, to Uluru, Ayers Rock, and traveled around all by myself just because I was told, my higher self said, go to Australia.
Right.
And I had to go that far to really start an introspective journey of self-awareness and self-responsibility. And that's what I've been doing for the past 8 years.
Oh, wow. And now you have a book out, though.
Well, the book that's out currently is an anthology with several other animal lovers. So I have a story in that book. I am writing 2 books contemporaneously. One about the story in the book that was published. It's a continuing story. And one about my journey and everything I discovered on my journey, which not a lot of people are talking about, really. So.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You talk about your near-death experience, and you saw more like a kind of like a Jesus figure, but then you had animals in yours. And did you have any like different color auras or anything like that? I know we've had other people in the past that said they saw different colors, like different auras. And did you experience any of that?
Not in my near-death experience. Off to the left, so it was just a white space, no ceiling, no floor. So I didn't go the whole way and cross. I didn't go through the tunnel. I didn't actually go to the other side. I was invited to go to the other side, is what happened to me. And so there was a giant deciduous tree that Jesus was standing in front of. And I really don't know, to be honest. I've asked several people what that might have been representative of, the tree of life or, what have you. But behind the tree, I saw some diffuse figures that were glowing that I thought were probably my family or my guides, but they were waiting until I made the decision if I was going to stay or go. And if I had gone, of course, then I would have gone through the tunnel, or who knows what would have happened, because everybody's experience is different.
Right. Yeah. I was just kind of curious because, we've had a couple that said they have seen auras, so I didn't know, I'm just trying to figure out, if there's any kind of similarities, in these near-death experiences. So, yeah, I find it very, very interesting. We've had a couple people on that have discussed that, so I just have to ask because I just want to see, maybe, if there might be similarity.
Well, PMH Atwater has written several books, and she has documented over 10,000 near-death experiences, and she categorizes them, and she continues to do research to this day. So if you have any interest in, percentages of the, do people have negative experiences, positive experiences? Do they have a life review? Do they meet people that they know? Do they remember their past life? It's all in her books. She's amazing.
And you said it was PMH?
Yeah, the initials PMH and then Atwater.
Okay, gotcha. I'll have to look that up. Now, how did you, besides seeing the horses and donkeys in your near-death experience, what was your first experience being able to communicate with them afterwards?
Oh, I don't remember. It was so many things I couldn't pinpoint. And after my near death, I was still on medication for about a year and a half. It took me a year and a half to titrate off. Well, at first the doctors didn't want me to stop. And so I just went back to my previous dosage before the level that caused my brain to forget to tell my lungs to breathe. And then there was some months, maybe 6 or 9 months, before I felt like, okay, I know how I'm going to do this. And I was basically doing it through Google. Google was my counselor, helped me find, I don't even want to say professionals, psychics, intuitives, healers, kinesiologists, and physical therapists, and, that type of thing. It was just a big mishmash of, anybody and everybody that would take money from me, basically.
Oh, yeah. Now, do you practice any of your abilities? Do you work on them? Do you try to hone them in at all?
Well, that's what I spent the last 8 years really doing, was first understanding what is it, and then why can't I control it? And then I had to heal myself quite a bit, a lot of this life trauma, and unpacking that, and soul retrievals, and you name it, quite a bit, and then quite a bit of past life contributing to issues happening in this life. So my soul made a really difficult choice to do a lot of work in this one life, not unlike a lot of other people on the planet right now. We are, many of us, doing quite a bit of work in this one life. So to answer your question, I think more completely.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yes. So what I did was, I realized that I wasn't supposed to use these abilities to heal people. I was supposed to use these abilities to understand myself and what healing looked like, because of all the experiences I had with healers, and healers who were largely unhealed themselves, and really not necessarily operating in integrity or knowing how to clear their space, or knowing really what's an appropriate way to engage with a client, or just all manner of chaotic mess. It was just a chaos.
Yes.
And, they kept telling me that I needed to be a healer. And I was trying to be very clear and say, I'm not ready. I'm too traumatized. I'm going to wait until I can really understand what's happening to me and make sure that the information that's coming through is accurate, because I could see that a lot of what they were bringing through was their own trauma, or they were reading their self, not reading me, or they just had limiting beliefs that were now, why did I have that level of clarity? Because I had the phone line directly to my higher self. And that's cheating. In my opinion, that was cheating.
Yeah.
I still had to heal myself so that I could organically manage my own psychospiritual apparatus and control my own clairaudience, claircognizance, clairsentience, clairvoyance, clairtangency, all that, right?
Right, yeah.
And it takes years to really, truly begin to think that you can understand what that's all about. And so that's what I did. And I had a lot of examples, really, of not what to do as a healer or as an intuitive or as a spiritual counselor, which I don't consider myself a spiritual counselor by any means. But I can share quite a bit about many different spiritual philosophies that I've learned and experienced, but generally as it relates to self-awareness. And I'll say, well, these people believe this, or in this religion, they believe this, or in this tradition of this religion, they believe this. And so it helps to understand symbolism and mythology and that type of thing, which I think is, I think it's an ethical way to go, and plus I'm just a really conservative person. You wouldn't know it now, but very cautious and very conservative. And, because I was really wounded, very doubting of myself and unworthy. And so it took really a while for many of these pieces to fall into place for me to sit here and be very confident in myself and to share with you, my journey. It wasn't easy to get to this place.
Oh, yeah, I bet not. Yeah. I could only imagine. I mean, I've never had a near-death experience, but I could only imagine what you have gone through. And just listening to you, I wonder if maybe you had these abilities prior, but the near-death experience brought them to reality for you.
I think I was sensitive and I had some level of ability as a child, but I shut it down. I had nightmares. I could see spirits, but a lot of what I saw was dark and negative because I was surrounded by dark and negative people. So I shut it down. And saying that I shut it down, what does that mean now in hindsight to me? My consciousness, my inner child, that consciousness that was afraid, turned it off. I didn't consciously say, I'm going to go to sleep tonight and ask my higher self to turn off my abilities. It's an unconscious thing that happens to us. And it's because our energy field is consciousness, our body is consciousness, and there are many moving parts to what creates the wholeness of, the expression of who we are. So those scared parts, those wounded parts, those abused parts of me, shut it off when I was young.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of kids do have those abilities when they're younger, but, I think we do shut them off. Like, I mean, I know when I was younger, I, would see spirits. They were more like a shadow figure at the side of my bed, and it scared me when I was younger. Like, until I got older, and then finally I'm just like, okay, what do you want from me? Like, I would literally shout at them in the middle of the night, like, okay, what do you want? I'm trying to sleep. Like, and as I'm older, it's gotten, more progressive. But yeah, I am in that point where I don't know how to shut things off yet. I have not been able to manage those abilities yet. So sometimes things get a little crazy when we're on investigations because I haven't mastered that yet. But
well, as I as I shared with you in the email I just shared, my house, I have never been inundated by so many spirits that were so interested in what you do. And I had to stop and say, no, I have to function. I'm running a ranch. I have animals. My husband's working. I'm trying to work. I was trying to edit a podcast. And I said, I have to work, guys. Come on. They weren't being respectful of my space. They were, in my opinion, trying to violate my energy field.
Right.
And I think these beings who, you investigate, they're not used to people claiming their space and saying no. So I think I pissed a few of them off.
You might have. You put them in their place. Sometimes you have to do that. I have realized that.
To your point about being sensitive as a child, so many people, I just love the internet. It brings us together, and it's bringing everybody's truth, whatever that looks like, more to the surface. And we're hearing from more and more people. I've always talked to plants. I've always talked to animals. I just don't tell anybody because my parents didn't believe me. So I went to school and majored in science.
Yeah. My mom was a little more understanding, and as I've gotten older, she has kind of told me a little bit more about some of the stories and things of me. Like one time, there was a couple times she said I was about 2, and we were at home, and she was in the kitchen. I just walked up to her, and I had this blank stare on my face, and she's like, "Well," she's like, "What do you need?" And she's like, and I told her, I go, "I'm ready to go home now." Mom was like, "Okay." She didn't know how to respond to that, and I had done it a couple times. And one of her friends is like, "Well, maybe she was actually talking to a spirit or something, or channeling something," because I do that. But so I thought that was very interesting, because I didn't know about that one. I know about talking in tongue and things like that when I was younger in my room, but so it is very interesting to hear these things. And I never would have said anything when I was younger, because I didn't want my friends and things to think I was crazy. So, but now it seems that now it's getting more acceptable, and more things are coming out, like paranormal. You have Bigfoot. Now there's a lot of UFO talk and stuff. I think it's just society is accepting it more, so it's easier for people to come out and tell their stories, which I think is a very amazing thing.
Oh, I agree. I absolutely agree. I just don't recommend it to people to just start doing it and start calling out to aliens being a medium or channeling people. Learn about the psycho-spiritual apparatus, learn how to ground, learn how to command your space, learn how to own your own, because most humans aren't even sovereign. People say, "Oh, I just have faith. Everything's happening the way it should be." I'm like, well, I can see your energy field and it ain't.
Yeah. Yeah. Excuse me. Excuse me. My allergies have been acting up a little bit. They've been picking the fields around here, so. But okay, so you said you have a couple more books in the way, and then you also mentioned you have a podcast. What's the name of your podcast, and where can people find that?
Interspecies Evolution.
Okay, that's
so the podcast explores just what we're talking about right now. How our human awareness of self, our awareness of the fact that we are spirit in a body, spirit having a physical human experience. When we go down that road and we embrace a journey of self-awareness, we then almost naturally begin to honor animals as sentient beings as well. So more and more people are coming to understand that animals have similar psycho-spiritual apparatus to us. And they can see spirit, and they can, excuse me, I don't know why I keep burping. It's so rude.
That's okay.
Normally when I'm working with clients and I burp, it's like we're healing holographic energy. It's just clearing. So we must be getting a free healing.
I usually get hiccups, so
Right. I apologize to the audience. I'm normally not belching on screen.
I couldn't hear you.
So the animals also have trauma. and they have thoughts and they have emotions, and they are struggling to become self-aware. Many animal souls are individuating out away from the collective consciousness of the soul group of the animal species that they are, and they're going on an evolutionary journey, and they're mostly the domesticated animals, and they need help and support. But if you're a human and you don't even honor your own consciousness and awareness and energetic construct, then how are you going to do it for the animals? Right. So that's the purpose of the podcast, is to talk about this, real talk about what it feels like to go on a journey. It's a messy journey. It's not always the beautiful, just go meditate in an ashram or, become that type of thing.
And where can your podcast be found? Is it on any podcast platform?
Well, it's on just about everyone: Spotify, Apple, Google, Buzzsprout, and like 15 others. The smaller ones that I don't know the names for.
That's okay. No worries. Yeah, I just wanted to know so that way I can post it for everybody so that way they can give it a listen. So sorry, I'm just trying to hold it in. My nose wants to start running and everything else. So now, do you have anything else that you're working on besides books, podcasts?
Well, I teach a class. I'm teaching a class right now in self-awareness in 15 minutes.
Okay. Yes.
And so I teach basic fundamentals of our humanness. What contributes to our thoughts? What generates the feelings? And our mind is a pharmacy, and the brain is a pharmacy, and our mind is the prescribing doctor. Every thought creates electromagnetic energy. Every emotion creates chemicals, hormones, a cascading process that creates these chemicals and hormones that manage our entire body, our entire endocrine system, and that determines our health. And so the state of our awareness of self, our thoughts, our emotions, our triggers. I teach people how to dig deep and use self-inquiry to go on that journey. And that working with me, that's a requirement before I'll do any teaching about energy work or animal communication or intuitive work for people or animals. These are prerequisites for me. I won't just take people's money and say, I can teach you how to be an animal communicator, because I tried that a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, and they were talking to entities and the wrong animal and bringing information. And there's no regulation in the industry, and I wasn't going to be pumping out people that were giving false information, or inaccurate information,
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't. I don't blame you there. Now, you have Facebook. Do you have any other? Do you have a website? Do you have any other social media that people can follow, see what you're up to? If they have any questions, they can get a hold of you.
Well, I have a website, which is heartofthehorse.us. And my podcast has its own website, which is interspeciesevolution.com. I don't really do social media.
Okay.
I don't blame her.
Yeah, I don't blame you either.
I mean, it's time consuming, and it invites, it's a giant time sink, I think.
Yeah, it is. It is for sure. Because there's a lot of interesting things out there on social media anymore. We just use it basically to post about upcoming shows, and that's about it. So
yeah. And it's funny, I never advertise, really. I advertise the podcast.
Right.
But for me personally, I had never advertised before. But still, I'll get clients and I'll say, well, how did you hear about me? And they'll say, oh, my dog told me that I needed to talk to you.
Oh, wow.
Or another lady, my dog told me to research near-death experience. And so and she said, I didn't know what that was. Yeah. And I researched it. And when your picture came up, the dog said, that lady, you have to talk to that lady.
Oh, wow.
So I figure I don't need advertising. The universe is.
Yeah, the universe is bringing them to you.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Universe, you need to bring us. No, I'm just kidding.
We're booked.
We are booked. We are booked. Yes. We have been very fortunate about that. But So before we wrap things up, I just want everybody to make sure you check out Ginny. Check out her podcast. You can find it on Spotify, Google. I'm sure it's on Amazon, Apple Podcasts, Castbox, Stitcher. Not sure what that popping noise was just now, but something just popped over here. Like,
I have no clue.
I have no idea what that was. But we will post all this information on our social media as well. And it was delightful to talk to you. I love your story. Keep doing what you're doing. It's very amazing.
Thank you. And you guys keep having fun doing what you're doing as well.
Oh, we will. I'm sure we will. All right. Well, thank you everybody who was listening. Thank you to everybody who was in chat. We appreciate every one of you. And once again, thank you so much for being on. And sorry for all the technical difficulty, but like I said, it's not our show if we don't have something, a little hiccup in our show. So everybody's used to it by now.
Bye, Kim. Thank you.
Thank you.